Okay.
Welcome to segment 2, Gold and Black Live. I want to thank our sponsors, XXX, Hilton Garden Inn, and of course, State Farm agent Trent Johnson. Our guest, segment 2, he's an annual visitor to the show, and Mike Berghoff, the chair of the Board of Trustees, and also works as the athletic department's liaison to the board, and a busy time, certainly. Never a dull moment in the world of college sports, and Mike's always gracious enough to kind of give us his worldview of what he sees and what challenges are ahead. Mike, obviously, after Tuesday night, a tough loss. This basketball team has been a lot of fun to watch. We're all glad that we're back in Mackey Arena, shoulder to shoulder, watching Purdue basketball. You've been involved, part of team dynamics. What do you see? Obviously Indiana Saturday, you don't need to say more for that, but no Big Ten title. But where do you see this basketball team right now?
Yeah, I think if you look around the Big Ten, you'll see that there's been some highs and lows for most of the teams that have been swapping out the top 2 or 3 spots. And we're one of them. And the last couple of games have been disappointing. But if you look at, some of our losses have been really tough to take, which is frustrating. If you go back to the Rutgers game, you got a half-court shot. You got at least 2 others that are, game winners within a couple of seconds. And had we had an opportunity to repaint those the way we wanted, we'd be heading into Saturday with the trophy in hand, but that's not the way it works. It's always a combination of skill, preparation, execution, and then you got to throw something in there that are breaks, things that alter the outcome of a game that maybe you don't have a lot of control over. And that could be officiating. It could be an injury. It could be just a bad break. And all of those have to be aligned for you to just sweep the table. But everybody's trying to sweep the table. So we're frustrated. Coaches are more frustrated. The players are more frustrated, but we've accomplished a hell of a lot. And we've, I think, done a really, really nice job of positioning ourselves for our ultimate goal, which is to get a really deep run in the tournament and try and win a national championship. And that goal is right in front of us. Got to take care of business, but it's right in front of us.
It's been such a crazy Big Ten season. Indiana on Wednesday night loses on another Ron Harper game winner. Purdue fans have lament that in the half-court shot back in December. Indiana Purdue is always a special game.
I didn't see. Is that how that game went down last night?
Yes. Ron Harper didn't hit a half-court shot, but he hit a 3-pointer at the 2-second mark to win that game for Rutgers, and really puts Rutgers in a good position, puts Indiana with its backs literally against the wall. They really need to beat Purdue or make a deep run into the Big Ten tournament, I think, to make the NCAA. But that rivalry and that specialness of having Purdue, Indiana on Senior Day is a big deal. And it will be a special environment, I would assume, on Saturday at 2:00 in Mackey Arena.
Yeah, it's certainly a game that a lot of our fans look to. We've had a lot of those this year, and our fan base has delivered. I mean, you look at the Rutgers game, which was a Sunday night late. The Illinois game was huge, and so just that place is electric when we have a full house with a lot at stake, and Saturday's another example of that.
Yeah, no question. And it has been a big, we talked before COVID, and, the confidence level Purdue it led in higher ed, the move back to in-person teaching and in-person for the student body. Still, the fan base, even in football and in basketball, has come back, at least, especially in football, better than I imagined. You were pretty confident, as I recall, a couple of years ago, but has it exceeded your expectations or surprised you in terms of just the role that the fan base has had in both sports in coming back to live events?
I'd have to say on the football side, it exceeded what I was thinking was already pretty darn good response by our fan base after a pretty long drought of mediocrity. So we went from a, you know, darn near a full recovery to, you know, completely healed this year. And man, was it fun. You know, we had some cool night games, but our fan base showed up, and they showed up in a big way. Basketball, you know, it's smaller attendance wise, so it's easier to fill up, but we've just demonstrated for a long time that we've got some serious basketball fans, Purdue basketball fans, who love to fill the place up. Student section's been phenomenal this year. They make a big difference, and that we had more of the paint crew this year. I can't remember how many additional seats we made available, but you could tell, you know, they were spread out a little bit more on the top. So it's been really, really good for the department and the team and morale.
Yeah. Your role as liaison in the board obviously takes an active role in athletics. Talk about, you know, what is your not necessarily your daily, but as you make connections with, whether it be Mike Babinski or other administrators, talk about that role and how that works, how often you touch base. You obviously attend games, we know that, but how does that work, that workflow work for you?
I'll tell you how it started is when I joined the board. I can't even remember what year it was, but it was when Keith Kroc was chair and France Cordova was our president and Morgan was our AD. We created an athletic liaison, and I was the first one in the position. Things weren't going so well at the time. We had a bad wave where both football and basketball were kind of struggling. Fan base was frustrated. The administration was frustrated. The coaches were frustrated. And so it was one of my early assignments as a board member is to figure out a way to help get that turned around. And around about that time, we made a change with the president. And so it helped me, having run the search for the next president. It helped me get acquainted more closely with Mitch because I really didn't know him that well. I really didn't know him prior to him coming to Purdue. And so it allowed both of us to work together to get the athletic program the support they needed to win. And the president's job is a big job. It's a very difficult job. And so he can't spend too much time on athletics, even though he wants to. I should say that differently. There's so many things for him to spend time on. He has to dish it out where he's going to get some significant return. And the creation of that athletic liaison position kind of opened the door for the board to get involved, and we took advantage of it. And then when I got appointed chair, we made I'm no longer the athletic liaison. Mike Klipsch is. Yeah. And so he had a preview of what's required, and you know, it's access to the coaches. It's basically us constantly asking Mike Babinski, his crew, and the coaches, you know, do you have what you need to win? And you know, that I'll say 8 to 10 years ago, there was a lot longer list of things they needed to win than there is today in a lot of sports. And so it's just been, you know, a result of focus and support. And we're in a lot better spot. And I feel really good about that. And you know, there are certain times when I'll go to a game and it just, you know, hits me about the progress we're making, because we've got great people and in the right spots today.
Stadium projects, you know, has been talked about, will be at least unveiled at the April board meeting. But from your view, you know, the importance of renovating Ross-Age Stadium and being able to do it on the heels of COVID all seems well, but it is interesting world and where college athletics is going and how it's going and what to invest in. As a broad stroke, you've been your view with as a board member in terms of looking at that renovation, the importance of it, and how you think it's best for athletics to proceed?
It's probably worth reminding people about a certain sequence that we had planned originally. And one of the biggest items that we started with was the football performance center, the Kosick Center. We didn't have that, you remember? And that was one of our first examples of showing we're changing the way we're looking at our athletic programs and the preparedness that the team has. So we launched that. I think it was $70 million or $75 million, fully expecting that was going to be the first in a sequence of moves to benefit one of our largest programs, which is football. And we finished it. Then we, at the time, I think we hired Bobinski at that time. Then we had a coaching change. So Coach Brom got the football performance center upon arrival. And the plan was, we're going to continue to roll through improvements to the football stadium. That got interrupted by COVID, but the design didn't get interrupted. So we got to put together this idea of what we're doing with the football stadium from concept to completion, but the sequencing got screwed up. And so now here we are, and we are going to get that sequencing started. We're going to start with phase one. The facilities folks and Mike Bobinski and Ken and Tom Moreland and the whole crew are working on what are the priorities to package in this phase one approval, which is going to occur in April. But we do know it's going to have something for the fans, it's going to have something for the team, and it's going to have something for the student athletes. An example of something for the student athletes, we want to include a student athlete dining court that doesn't really exist today. It's kind of squished into Cary Quad, and if you ranked us against the rest of the Big Ten, it's low. And so that's an example, something for the student athletes. Something for the fans could be connectivity Wi-Fi wise. We're still trying to think whether we include something on the south end zone in phase one, which is roughly about a $30 million phase. So they're working through that, and we'll have it to us in April. And then for the team, an example would be something, the student athlete dining is one of them. But also, at least as of today, included in the package is a tunnel from the football performance center into Ross-Ade Stadium, which will alleviate the need for a lot of duplication in the south end zone for support rooms and facilities. They'll just go back to the locker room. So I'm excited about it. Our fans need to see some progress. It'll be really the first significant thing we've done now that the COVID burden is behind us.
Yeah, and you have it's an ongoing, ever present need, certainly over the next period of time. Looking at the landscape of college athletics, name, image, and likeness, transfer portal. No one has a crystal ball of where this all will be in 10 years, but it's obviously a big emphasis of the university and will continue to be so. But what challenges do you see in things like name, image, and likeness and transfer portal to continue to maintain or build your programs the way that you want them built?
I think the first part of it is understanding what the parameters are, what the limits are, what the boundaries are. I mean, I know there's a documentation on it, but it sure seems like different places are doing different things. And, we're trying to figure out how do we position ourselves in a way that we can compete for the talent, but still comply with the rules and the tradition, of a tier one public university, a top 10 public university in the country. And the objective is a tough one, right? To be highly competitive for Big Ten championships and on the national stage in sports and athletics, and also retain peer image as a public university, a top 10 public university. So it's a challenge in doing that and finding the right avenue. It's complicated too, and it's also new. And in some ways, while it was it was expected, it was still a result of a court ruling. It could have gone either way. And so the current focus is right now, at least at the very beginning, is to find a way to support our current student athletes in whatever initiative related to name, image, and likeness that they want to pursue. They could do it in a professional way to maximize the benefit to the student and also enhance Purdue's reputation. But we've got some work to do, in figuring out our lane.
Yeah, the Purdue work harder and maybe work not necessarily a situation where Purdue has a certain persona in a way that it does business. It always has as a university, and how that ties in. A lot of folks will talk about, well, the Alabamas and the Ohio States of the world are going to have all the advantages. Again, you got to understand what the ground rules are, and I totally understand that. But Purdue's got its own niche in terms of the kind of student athlete it tends to recruit. Do you see any avenues for Purdue having that having a very positive situation in terms of what it can offer NIL or that student athlete experience?
Yeah, I don't want our alumni, our students, our fan base to think that we're not going to try and compete on with the NIL strategy any differently than we are wins and losses. But there are different strategies, and I think it's fair to say ours isn't going to be creating endowments for offensive linemen, $50 million, an endowment that's going to pay out. But it doesn't mean we can't leverage some other advantages we have. And I'll just pick one, okay? Our marketing program is really fantastic, and people have had to notice that it's changed over the last, 3 years, having, one of the best marketing or the best marketing program in the country, recognized as part of a fast company. And so that's something we want to lend to that advantage to our student athletes to promote whatever it is they need that's consistent with what they're trying to do there and the goals of the university. So, we want to help them be in the top tier in whatever exercise they're doing. But we do have limitations that are imposed upon us, both by the ruling and also just by the limits of what kind of resources we want to provide. But we're figuring it out. We'll figure it out.
And you have in a situation where it's changing, and you don't always have. I mean, they're moving the goalposts from time to time, and until they stop moving them, that's going to be a challenge, I would suspect. Yeah, it's
now an everyday part of a team's routine. You've got players who are involved in it and seeking help from the university, much like they might with physical conditioning or nutrition. Here's another area that we need to provide excellence in order to compete at the levels we need to compete and win.
And that will continue to be a process. Last question in this segment, and you look at your coaches, your two highest profile coaches, with Jeff Brom and Matt Painter. Just give it. Both have had success, a great deal of success, especially recently. How do you look at where they're going at the next level? I'll start with Jeff Brom. Obviously had a 9-win season, terrific end of the season. What attributes do you like to say in him as Purdue continues to move forward in football?
Yeah, so I guess first on both of our coaches that you're talking about here, specifically football and basketball. I think nearly every fan would agree. We have a couple of coaches whose core beliefs, the way they behave, the way they conduct themselves, their philosophies are wildly consistent with the Purdue University DNA. And that's not an accident. I mean, it's part of the recruiting process, right? You got to find a coach that really fits well. And that's a really big deal. It's a really big deal. And so once that happens, then it's, it gets a lot of the other issues out of the way, problems that you might normally encounter if you don't have a good fit. And then it's all about supporting them. And sometimes that's with money. Sometimes that's with, supporting facilities, but it's also being a partner when things aren't going well. Okay.
Yeah.
And everybody's trying to win. And so it's a tough job. And so I think one of the things I want our fans to really think about is how hard our coaches have fought. One, to get to the top, to sustain when things aren't going well. Both Matt had a couple of bad years, and but look where we are. Look where we are today. We're competing for a national championship. Jeff came in, had some very early success, then he had a couple of years that didn't go the way he wanted. Then he comes back and has this terrific year last year. And part of our job as administration and the board is to support this team, as coaches, in a way that they know that the long goal is to win a lot of games, and they have an administration and a board that supports them. So we're in a good spot, and we're going to keep the gas, keep the foot on the pedal, and burn it up until we win a national championship in basketball and head off to the Rose Bowl.
All right. We'll let you get back to your day job, obviously,
thanks.
And that's always a good thing. With Lennox Steel, Indianapolis, but you spend a lot of time on I-65 coming to West Lafayette as well. But we'll look forward to seeing you on Saturday from a distance at the men's game. The Boilermaker women obviously also in Indianapolis this weekend, playing hopefully from Purdue fan standpoint, maybe a couple of games, and we'll see how all that goes. But Mike, thanks so much for your time. Always appreciate your insight. And we really appreciate what you do for Purdue athletics. And I will take a short break and bring on, you get Mike Berghoff in segment 2, and you get Gene Keady in segment 3. So that'll be a lot of fun. Gene will be in the arena. So you're the warm-up band, Mike, but we appreciate that very much.
Well, it's a privilege to be included in the same session as Gene. And I want to give a shout out to Nick Hoffman and Morgan Gutwein. Nick was a former employee of Allen and is a current employee of ours, and he has a wedding this Saturday that sadly conflicts with the IU game, so you won't see me at the game. I hate to say that, but I got to support my crew here. So thanks for having me on, Al.
All right, good. You can't be cloned anymore. That'll be down the road a little bit. You can't be, right. But we're excited for Nick as well. So thanks so much, and have a great rest of your day. And we'll be back in 2 minutes with Coach Gene Keady and our final segment of Gold and Black Live.